Welcome back to another Viewer's Choice episode. Today's topic is around boundaries and burnout, and I'm going to talk about them in burnout and boundaries order because I learned to put boundaries in place because I experienced burnout. So I worked at an organization and I didn't have boundaries. I didn't really understand what boundaries were. Didn't have boundaries. I just went along, la 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 la, living my best life, working, doing the thing. Whatever people said, there was an opportunity. Who would like to do this? Who would like to do that? I did the traditional thing of like putting my hand up for everything. Really wanted to get ahead. Really wanted to make a good impression. Really wanted to learn new skills and develop. So I genuinely was putting myself forward for what I thought was positive reasons. As you kind of go on, year 3, year 5, year 7, year 11, in a place of employment, what happens is you're always the person that says yes. And I think that's the trap that I fell into. It was no expectation of the organization because the people I was working with in year 12 were completely different to the people 99% of the time to the ones that I was working with in year 1. So it was something that I had put on myself and just became part of who I was. But what it meant that I was constantly in a state of just being heightened. Like I call it like my meerkat era. Like everyone's talking about eras online at the moment. I call that my meerkat era. I was just like, the coffee didn't help, but I felt like I needed coffee because I was like just gassed the whole time, just like on 10 the whole time. But it's because I had too many things on my plate. It's because I didn't say no. It's because I was always like, yeah. Also because I worked there for so long, people knew, I think there was only maybe 4 or 5 people that had worked there longer than I had. So people knew that I had the organizational knowledge and background and corporate knowledge and understanding. So what that meant was the places they were meant to go to for their answers weren't going there. They were coming to me, and I was just like, la la la, yeah, sure, I'll help. And it came to a place where it's like, I'll help to my own detriment. So I was like, putting my work phone on the underground on my way to work in the morning, doing half an hour of emails underground where there's no network. So as soon as you come above ground, ping, 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 they can all ping off. Then walking from the train station to my office, head down in what was BlackBerry, that was BlackBerry era, head down in BlackBerry, just messaging and texting and talking to the team, and then getting into the office. I'd already done, by the time I'd got into work, I'd already done an hour's work on the underground and on my commute to work. So I'm already in a heightened state, and then I get in, and then it's like, it felt like too much. It felt like a lot, and it felt like too much. And I think that I had to get to that stage of burnout. Now when I look back, 100% I was burnt out. I was burnt out for quite a long time, but I had to get to that stage of burnout that when we moved to Australia, I made the decision, I'm not going to be that person that I was. I'm not falling back into those traps. It wasn't healthy for me, nor for my family, and for the organisation. I left and they rolled in the next one. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously they said goodbye, bought me a nice little gift card, wrote some awesome messages like in cards and stuff like that. It was a positive experience working there. Definitely not slating the place that I worked. But at the end of the day, I was replaceable like everybody. But when I was in my meerkat era, I thought, I have to do it. No one else knows this. I have to do this. I've been here the longest. People are asking me. People are counting on me. And it just kept compounding and snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. That when I moved here to Australia, I just felt so free, and I didn't feel like I was in that trap. So for me, moving here, having boundaries is really easy. I never want to feel what I felt back where I've worked before. I even had like heart palpitations. Like it was really bad. I know the coffee didn't help, but just that level of anxiety and feeling like you had to be the first one to respond to an email. You had to do, like, you were just constantly working. It felt like you were in a state of panic the whole time. So all of that to say, moving here, it was really easy to set boundaries in place. I'm not afraid of saying no. One of the things that I'm working on, and that is hard, is that how people deal when you say no. Does that make sense? Because I do still say yes for a lot of things. But there are some things that are just a non-negotiable no for me. But I do say yes to a lot of things, and I will put my hand up for a lot of things because I am I try and be helpful and I want to help people, but I think I have a much better balance now. The thing I am working on is how do I still feel sometimes a bit of a heavy heart when someone's asked me for something and then I don't do it or I can't do it. Like I still feel, I don't know, I feel some way about it, but I do have to remind myself that there's other people that can answer those questions. There's other people that are around, and you can't be everything to everybody, because what happens is you're everything to everybody to the detriment of yourself. And I refuse to do that. So that's how I set in boundaries. Some of the boundaries I have in place are, I have a work mobile. I put it on when I get to work and I turn it off when I finish work. I don't work in crisis services and I don't work in out of hours services anymore. And that was a conscious decision because, again, you get that creep into your personal life. So I've made decisions that allow me to have those boundaries. If I have no out of hours services in my portfolio and I have no crisis services in my portfolio, there's no expectation and there's no reason why I should be on emails and be contactable and be contacted all weekend, all day long. Absolutely not. Yes, there are times where you need to work extra, and obviously 100% happy to do that. That should be the exception and not the rule. Just having those clear boundaries. When I go to work, I drive, so obviously there's no emails underground situation going on, but I listen to a podcast either that makes me laugh, I listen to cheesy music that makes me smile, or I'll listen to an audiobook that helps me grow and develop. So I'm making those constant choices and effort to keep those boundaries in place because that's what's important for me. I used to have goals, and I think that contributed to it. I used to have goals of being a CEO. That used to be one of my goals. Long ago in my 30s, I wanted to be a CEO. It's not a goal for me anymore. It's not a goal for me. My goal, and I know this probably sounds so airy-fairy, but I only know how to be authentic. And my goal is peace. I just want peace. I want to come home and be with my family, and I want to engage with my family, and I want to maintain eye contact with my son and look him in the eye and ask him how his day has gone, and not be distracted with like messages coming up on my watch or looking at my phone or let me just check this email. I want to be there. I want to be present. He's my last baby. I say 14, but he's my last kid. I've got 2 kids, 23 and 14. I don't want these years for him to look back and think all he saw was the top of my head. Also, we give out to kids so much nowadays. Well, I give out to my son. I don't know about you guys. I give out to my son all the time about technology. He has specific time frames. He has to earn time on technology. For every hour that you read, you get half an hour on technology. He earns technology time, and he's 14 and he probably hates us for it, but I'm constantly riding his backside about the importance of eye contact, about the importance of engaging with people, about the importance of conversation and connection to your family and going outside and playing a sport and all of those things. I'd be a hypocrite if I then sat there all evening on the sofa on my work phone responding to work, when, like the example I gave before, when I left, obviously everyone's replaceable. They'll roll in the next person, but they're not going to roll in a next mum. They're not going to roll in a next son. The first time he did this thing, the first time he landed this new thing at gymnastics. If I'm in my phone and I'm prioritizing work, it is to the detriment of my family. No matter how much you think you have the balance, it is to the detriment, for me, would be to the detriment of my family. And I don't want to do that. So that's kind of how I set boundaries in place. It can be really hard. Like I said, I didn't have them before I nearly fell over, until I had that burnout. I didn't have clear boundaries in place. So I understand it can be really hard. But for me, I always think now about my why. What's important to me? Why do I do what I do? Why am I here? What do I want my legacy to be? I don't want to be, I know this sounds morbid, but on my deathbed and no one said, oh, I wish I sent one more email, or oh, I wish I wrote one more board paper. Like, nobody's going to do that. It's all going to be about experiences. It's all going to be about connection with people. It's all going to be about experiencing different things and laughing and I wish I'd done this, or I wish I'd done this thing or that thing. I don't want to get to that stage where I'm looking back and I have all of those regrets. I sacrificed enough. Every single job that I worked in, except for this one actually. So I'm in my 40s. So from working from the age of 16, 17 until now, all my jobs except for this one have included me working away, travelling either up and down the UK or in Australia interstate, staying overnight, weekend accessibility, weekend events, weekend conferences. This is the first time in my life that I've lived and worked in the state territory, if you like, that I live and work in is the same space, and there's no requirement for me to stay overnight, there's no requirements for me to work weekends, and I made that choice because this is what's important to me. So the choices that I'm making over the next 5 years in regards to boundaries are all things that are going to help me find that inner peace. So my advice to you would be, what's important to you? Why is it important to you? And just working towards making decisions and putting boundaries in place that help you get closer to where you want to be.